Hello everyone, welcome back to Discovering Dawson's Creek here on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel. Exciting times. It's getting a little bit intimate and steamy on
Yeah, it's a
Dawson's
little
Creek
bit.
these days, Janine. Episodes 9 and 10 of Season 2 are what we are looking into today. These are the election and high-risk behaviour. The high-risk behaviour is, of course, steaminess.
Oh,
and
yes.
such romantic interludes as that, which is really, I think, the first time that Dawson's Creek has become all-encompassing, and every single character at the kind of one point
Has something going on.
Has something going on and has been so thrust into a particular steamy situation.
Yes.
And, maybe this is a small bit of maturing for the characters. Maybe this is, as we grow up, as we come of age, it's a coming of age teen drama at the end of the day, isn't it? So we are to expect this kind of thing in it, but it certainly all comes to a head in these couple of episodes, particularly the second episode, obviously, that we'll be talking about today.
Yes.
But there's a lot going on still as
Oh,
we
yeah.
get closer to the middle of season 2, even though I thought we would be long past the middle of season 2 at this point. I remember I was very disappointed to find out it was 22 episodes.
Yes, our good friend Eric Monroe had a good laugh at when he saw that you were expecting a very limited season.
Thank you, Eric. I don't see what the issue is. 20, it's too long. It's too long for a season of television.
It'll be all worth your while by the end of the season, because this is a good season.
I really, really hope it will, Janine, to be honest. But why don't we get straight on into it, I suppose, and talk about Dawson's Creek, Season 2, Episode 9, The Election. The binder is out, Janine. Show off the binder, as you always like to. There it is. And let us know what we have in this one.
All right. So, Episode 209, The Election. The politics of high school.
Yeah.
Joey joins Andy and Pacey's crusade to bring decency back to politics in the sophomore class election. But when their opponent, Abby, throws down the gauntlet by insulting Joey's father and digging up Andy's dark family history, there's no telling how ugly things could get. Meanwhile, Dawson, whose screenwriting is suffering from his adult perspective, hesitantly accepts Jen's tantalizing offer to help him experience the dark pain and exhilaration that comes with being a teenager, while Mitch and Gail use a plumbing emergency as an excuse to rekindle their amorous furniture fetish.
Rekindle's a bit of a steep word to use there, given what happens in the scene directly after that.
Yeah.
But I have a couple of questions I would like to start off.
Yes.
This episode's discussion to you, Ginny. Number one, basically, what do you feel about these 2 episodes we've got going on today? Because you made a big point about the all-nighter from last episode of Discovering Dawson's Creek. Yeah, I don't remember you ever making like a big statement point about these couple of episodes, and I found them very, very engaging.
Well, for me, high risk behavior is definitely a fun one because it leads into a to be continued. So the next episode that follows that, I believe it's called Sex, She Wrote, is a very kind of fun. It turns the events of high risk behavior into a bit of a mystery.
Angela Lansbury gets involved.
Exactly. Yeah. Abby Lansbury in this case.
Oh, God.
So, yes.
Okay. Fair enough.
But
yes, go ahead.
I did have a lot of fun with high risk behavior because, sex was always this kind of looming conversation happening in season 1, and so now to kind
Yeah.
of have our characters evolve and really delve into the situation, and then the kind of guessing game of, "Wait, who's actually whatever happened between So that's always kind of like the fun little mystery of what actually happened and how those relationships work, and this really interesting dynamic of, Jen and Dawson circling back to each other in a very different dynamic, which I like that we do get the kind of start of that in the election episode. So also
Yeah.
like seeing a more loose Dawson as well. I think this is probably
Well, he needs it
yes, the most I've
as
liked Dawson when Jen could kind of loosen him up a little bit.
yeah, he definitely needs it as Jen obviously recognizes. And
Yeah.
given what you've just said there, that you like this very different dynamic now between Jen and Dawson, where it's kind of it feels a bit easier, doesn't it? It doesn't feel
Yeah.
like it's all encompassing this incredibly over heightened emotional situation that you got in season one.
Yeah. And Jen was, like, really hiding a big chunk of herself, like, she wasn't fully playing into
Yeah,
who she really was because she was trying to be this perfect virginal type person for Dawson. So there was this really kind of weird falseness within the relationship, which I kind of always wish is why Jen maybe would have given as the reason she broke up with Dawson is because she maybe felt like she
yeah,
had because of how he kind of sees her and that she can't live up to that. But the kind of no reason that she gave was kind of lame. But you realize it here that that's probably why it didn't work because she was kind of playing up this idealized image he had of her instead of really getting to be herself. Now that that's kind of not a factor and she can be herself and he's seen like the messiest side of her, their
yeah.
relationship is far more honest and open, and that helps get them closer.
Yeah, and I know I've complained about the back and forth already
Yeah,
in
but it
one and a half
how is this
seasons,
little swing back feeling for you?
but I this is what I was gonna say. I do agree with you that it's nice that it's a different dynamic. Now, if it had gone back to the same dynamic, which is what I
Yeah,
always complain about the most back and forth television show of all time, Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai,
It's what I
yeah,
always complain about
yeah,
because it is literally the same dynamic that it goes back and forth through.
yeah.
This actually does feel different. So I understand and I get that. I kind of do like this different version of
Yes.
their relationship. I do.
Yes, and it's actually differently
Um,
handled by both of them in a really, fairly mature way. Like, in this episode,
it
when Dawson
is.
kind of makes an advance towards her, she's really kind of mature about it and makes a point to kind of stop things even though like what we had been seeing up to that point which Dawson kind of calls her out on is that she's had been kind of throwing herself at him trying to get back with him and
Yeah.
now when Dawson is kind of going in for this kiss in this moment that seems very kind of spontaneous and romantic but she's very much like no because I'm kind of enjoying us really finally falling into this sweet spot of friendship and I don't want to
Yeah,
ruin
because
that.
that's what did it for me.
Yeah.
If we'd have accepted that kiss, I would have been throw Dawson's Creek out the window. And I don't
Yes.
want to be throw
And
Dawson's Creek out the window.
but even in the next episode, which we'll kind of elaborate on once we get there, when Dawson kind of comes to Jen with this spontaneous situation now, he's even going into it like telling her not to ask his motivation or his reasoning. We're just
Yeah.
doing this. We're just doing this without expectation. So, the season 1 romanticizing Dawson would have put all of this stigma on what happened between the two of them. But they're able to just kind of have this kind of lustful moment and have it just be that.
Yeah.
So that also
You
that
loose teen
yes,
rebellious
exactly.
Dawson.
So it also so that, her kind of giving into a lustful moment with Dawson doesn't feel like this kind of switchback of them kind of going back into old ways. It feels very different because it's like this purely passionate thing and nothing to do with, you know, contextualizing and all the kind of big ideas and thoughts and feelings Dawson is always kind of rattling on about. So,
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I like that we've started this discussion on this episode with that, because it's a very key
Yeah.
element of these couple of episodes. But my
Ye
second question that
Okay.
I wanted to
Mhm.
start with was, what the hell is this high school presidential election? Because obviously I have come across in television and movies and media and all that sort of stuff,
Mhm.
high school presidential elections. Let's elect your class president. The closest Britain ever gets to this is school council, right?
Mhm.
Which is essentially the kind of same thing, but it's not one person at the head of it. Because
Well,
we
yeah,
believe
well,
in democracy in Britain,
y
and we don't,
y
just have one person running the entire
yes.
school.
Yes.
Um, how is it allowed to get so horrifically horrible in terms of what people are saying to each other? And because what happens in this election episode, Abby starts rattling off about everybody's family, Joey's family, Andy's family, and to the school population, to
Yes,
everybody,
and it
to
isn't
teachers, to
until
faculty members, to,
yes, and
to
it isn't until
absolutely everybody.
yes, and it isn't until a good chunk into her whole speech that the teacher even stops her, which this teacher is the same kind of caca guidance counselor who told Pacey he was going nowhere.
Yeah,
So,
but I'd like to also point out he does absolutely nothing to actually stop her. He just says, "Now stop it now, Abby.
yeah,
Come
yes.
on, just
And
stop
even
it." No! Prison with statements like that.
yes, but even, like, I was kind of like, "Is Pacey gonna get up and say and do?" But
I
Pacey
mean,
didn't really
really,
do
yeah.
anything either. He kinda just sat there too, so I was like,
I was very
"You were
disturbed by
elected
the whole
hero in
scene,
the last episode, and now you're just kinda sitting
right?
here listening to her rail on about your girlfriend," and like, and that was
I
kinda
was
weird,
very, very
but he
disturbed.
does redeem himself by the end of the episode with
The
his little
problem is, I was just off put by the
yeah,
whole scenario. It felt, I know this is Dawson's Creek. This is
yes,
heightened drama. I'm
yes,
aware of that. That particular moment felt too extreme. It just felt too extreme for me. I cannot understand why a human being would, for no reason other than like school president, insist on just finding very, very personal, unpleasant
yeah.
information about people's families and then just telling everybody in a public debate setting. I
Yes.
cannot understand why Abby would do that. We've seen Abby be an unpleasant person. We've seen Abby be a real piece of work in the school. Okay. But it
Yes.
has never been on a entire population level. It has been personal. It has been, I'm just the mean
Private.
girl of the
Yeah.
school. This is like genuine slander. This is
Yeah.
genuinely calling out somebody else's character in a public sphere for no reason whatsoever and outing people in certain situations,
Ye
outing, not saying it's a bad thing, but like outing Andy's familial struggles and Joey's
yeah.
familial struggles when they don't want them to be, and
And
it
it
is
and
their
yeah.
right to tell people that.
Yeah.
And it really just grated me. And
Yeah.
I know I shouldn't probably be focusing on it as much as I am, but it really, really
No, it
grated me as
was
to how it was,
able
as to
to just
how it's in
happen.
the episode.
Yes. Yes. It's very abrasive, and it will actually play into some interesting things, particularly with Andy later, which I'm not sure if that happens in this season. I think it does. Um, but just kind of hold on to your feeling you have about this because it's going to play into some things in a very interesting way going forward. And sorry if you hear bulldog snoring. My dog refused to leave the room. But yes,
See, because it didn't even make me dislike Abby more than I already did. It didn't
yeah.
make me, you know, feel any anger towards her. It just made me feel like I wasn't watching the same show anymore. It took
That
me
it just
out of
it
the
went too
show.
far. Okay.
It
Oh,
went too
wow.
far.
Okay.
It felt wrong in all
Yes.
counts, and I
Um,
actually, unfortunately, think this is a writing thing.
okay.
I
Well, I
don't think it was necessary.
I feel like this will maybe play into some things going forward that will help maybe make it make sense to you why it had to kind of go this hard, because Andy will kind of struggle a little bit more, as we saw her kind of struggle.
But we're
Um,
seeing Andy struggle.
I know, but this is going to add to that because it's going to go a little bit further going forward. So I think
Maybe this is.
they need things to be the catalyst for that. So I think that's why they
I
went as
mean,
hard as they did.
I get that. I
Yeah.
understand that. I
Because
think there's
by the
already
end,
been a I think there's already been a catalyst to that, and because I think there's already a an element in place that we know Andy is struggling. We know Andy is taking depression medication and that sort of stuff
well,
again, right?
no, that this is the incident that pushes her to
Or is
get
that
back onto it. Yes. So she was off of it. She was kind of doing her thing. And then all of this happens with Abby attacking her. And this is when, she runs away from the school. Jack finds her, he snaps even at Joey and he's talking to her and he's telling her, your emotions are all over the place. I think it's time you get back on your medication. She's trying to say she's fine. She doesn't need it. And Jack's imploring her, she's ignoring him, she thinks she's fine. And then by the end of the episode we see, Pacey calls her, she's washed her face, and she ends up kind of
yeah.
reluctantly taking the pills, and then kind of hiding them from him going into that next episode. So this is the catalyst that pushes her to a mental break, to where she's going to have to start taking her medication again, and where she's going to kind of be hiding it from Pacey as well. So
I mean,
I
look,
think it
maybe it's
needed to
just
it needed to push it this hard to get her to this place where she's starting to break down, because that will kind of, escalate a little bit more as we kind of go farther, because we've seen how Andy deals with pressure. She tries to evade it, she tries to ignore it, she tries to push it down. So all of that is going to kind of culminate into some interesting things going forward. So I think we did need it, as harsh as it was, for
maybe
future
then.
story purposes. So hopefully it will kind of make sense and feel like it was purposeful and not just mean-spirited when we kind of get into things more.
Well, then I would hope so, and I'm now thinking, because in this show I tend to think about why I am feeling certain things
Yeah.
towards
Mhm.
characters and story points and things like that. So why am I feeling this? I think because at the end of the last two episodes, you'll notice on the last episode of Discovering Dawson's Creek, I was like, Pacey and Andy, yeah, love it,
They're
all
locked
in,
in. Yes.
going
Mhm.
for it, love this. And instantly later, it's just like, oh God, we're messed up again. Like, what a great moment we had. What a great coming together we
Yes, you
have
just needed
in that
some
eighth
time to
episode.
breathe with them being
And
okay.
maybe this is
And
my thing, and maybe
and
this is
maybe it
just what I
feels
have to
like the tug of
realize.
war and the back and forth, because, you can't just sit
Yeah,
in a positive moment with this couple, immediately has to kind of snowball kind of thing.
maybe this is just what I have to realize. And it's just taking my mind a little bit of time to process, because
Yeah.
I am somebody that is a little bit of likes to take a bit of time to process
Mhm.
certain, you know, heightenedly dramatic stories in TV, in movies, in things like that.
Yeah.
I I prefer that more steady pace when it comes to these levels of emotional storytelling.
Yeah.
That Dawson's Creek just doesn't do that. And that Dawson's Creek will never do that. And I have to realize that that's not what it is. Why
Yeah.
do I expect it to be that when that's not what it is?
Yes, I think you just have to take it for what it's giving you. And I think Dawson's always really good at the show is really good at really making things matter, making things make sense, kind of circling back to things that they previously set up. They don't really try to leave loose threads. Um
Yeah, well, that's good. That's
yes,
always good, I
I
suppose.
will say there is kind of a one big weird loose thread that comes up later, but we're not talking about that. But as for right now, I feel like definitely we are focused, and everything that is happening is cause and effect. So hopefully you'll see that the harshness of what happens in this election thing with Abby is a purposeful choice to lead to more kind of dramatic things that of course the show wants to do because of what it is going
Yeah,
forward.
and look, you can also read all that I've just said as me getting so into the show and so into the characters that I
That you're just having an
genuinely accept it
emotional
happened.
reaction. Yes, yes. So, yeah, I mean, that's where we leave Andy at the end of this. She kind of has a bit of an emotional breakdown. Her and Joey are supposed to be running for sophomore president and vice president. Everything's going good. Pacey's like their campaign manager. He's helping out. Um, Joey's a great running mate. She's super supportive. She also has her own things that Abby brings up about her dad being in prison and her dead
Yeah.
mom and all of these kinds of things. And
But like,
I and see kind of in
sorry,
the
I know I'm
comparison.
harping on at it. I know I'm harping on about it, but like to stand there in front of your entire school population, look to your right at Joey,
Yeah.
your running mate, or your
Mhm.
opponent's running mate, and go, "Ha ha, your dead mother." Is just I can't fathom it. I really genuinely can't fathom it.
Yes. No, this is who Abby is. She is this deplorable person, which I'm telling you, it will play into later
Just
episodes in a very
worse. How
interesting
did it get
ways.
worse? I know you told me it would get bad with Abby this season. I know you did.
Yes. No, it'll play into some very interesting things going forward. That's all I can say about that. But
Okay.
yes, yes. But see, also you can see kind of how differently Abby and Joey react to things because Joey's kind of used to it. She's used to people saying all these things about her, so she can kind of let it roll
Oh
off her
yeah,
back
yeah.
and kind of support Andy. Like, when Andy kind of freezes, Joey's stepping in and trying to, de-escalate things, but it ends up becoming too much for Andy. And then when it's time to do their speeches, Pacey and Joey are very much like, we can drop out. It's not a big deal. We don't have to do this. Andy thinks she can because that's what she does. She's, very much,
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. I'm determined. I'm a bit neurotic. I'm trying to push my feelings away by distracting myself with things. And when she goes to the loudspeaker to do their speech, she can't do it and she runs away.
Yeah.
And so Abby thinks her and Chris Wolf, who's her running mate, have it in the bag.
Right.
And then it's the other two nerds, they're also running as well. So
They don't matter.
yes, well, they end up kind of winning the thing because Pacey
Well,
ends up
yeah.
Pacey ends up kind of slyly pushing the loudspeaker and getting Abby to say all these terrible things about why she's running, and she's fooled all these dimwits in the school and everyone's dumb, and so yeah,
I
kind
mean,
of
that's a good
ruins.
thing, I suppose. It was
Yeah,
never the show was never going to actually allow Abby and Chris
Abby to
Wolf
get
to win.
away with all of that. So ultimately, Pacey lets her just kind of out herself to the whole school that she is terrible and doing this for all the wrong reasons and all this. And then he kind of tells the nerds, "School's yours." So they,
Yeah.
to imply that they've won the election. So yeah, so this pushes Andy to a kind of a dark place. Jack is, to the point where Jack and I think we saw earlier in the episode, Joey and Jack have since had a date, in the last episode, and they're getting
Yeah.
closer. And so she's trying to get to know him. She's asking him all these questions while they're at work about his family. Are you more like your mom or your dad? And he keeps like evading and doesn't want to talk about these personal things with her. And he keeps just changing the subject. So then when it gets to this point of Abby saying these terrible things to Andy, and she runs out of the school and Jack goes to find her, Joey's like, hey, I'm sorry. I feel so bad for prying about your family. Is everything okay? He snaps at her and is very kind of rude to
Yeah,
her.
he
Um,
does.
yes, because, he also is just, having a hard time. It's built up for him too, processing all of the things happening in their family and just the worry for his sister. So ultimately he goes home, he finds Andy and implores her, I think it's time to get back on your medication. Andy kind of pushes that no, she's fine. And then ultimately by the end of the episode, she realizes that, yeah, she is not okay. And she
Yeah.
ultimately we see her taking her medication and telling Pacey she's fine. So it's going to be a case where she's pushing it down. She's kind of ashamed, like same with her mother, her kind of lying about it and the status of her family, lying about all of that to Pacey. And so at this point, the fact that she still kind of has these reservations to just open up to him after all that he's shown her is still kind of scary, that she still doesn't feel wholly comfortable to share everything with him.
It
So,
is, but I understand that, and I think I
yeah,
continue to understand Andy as a personality. And to be
yeah.
honest, this episode also, as I think we kind of need to try and wrap up our conversation on
Yes.
the first episode
Yes,
and
yes.
make sure we give plenty of conversation to
Yeah,
high risk
high risk
behavior.
behavior, yeah.
But I understand, although I suppose not offput's the wrong word, but didn't like the snapping of Jack in this
Yeah.
episode, I understand it. And I think I become more understanding of Jack in these couple of episodes as well, and his mentality on the look,
Of
I'm
wanting
in
to
this
be,
position.
yeah,
I'm in this position where I have to be the rock for this entire family.
yeah,
I have no other option.
yeah.
So I am on edge as well. I just don't show it like Andy shows it.
Yes, and then kind of just lets that kind of unleash,
Yeah, which you
uh,
understand.
yes. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where we leave all of that. And then just to kind of the other main point was just the Jen and Dawson relationship. She ends up kind of taking the job as the producer for his new movie that he's working on. And Kevin Williamson, known for this meta commentary, he ends
Yeah,
up kind of throwing this fun meta commentary into the mix when I think this is the episode we open with Dawson and Pacey reading his script, or it might be the next
it
one.
is. No, it
Yes.
is. Yes.
But yeah, we get a little bit of insight of Dawson kind of using these $10 words for his characters, and they're supposed to be 15. And it's very much what people said about Dawson's Creek when it first came out, these young kids using these, big words, and that's not how young people speak. And Kevin
If there's
Williamson
one
always,
word Dawson really likes, it's unequivocal.
oh yes, and then people doing the script and having a hard time saying that in the next episode. But yeah, I love kind of this meta commentary that happens with uh Kevin Williamson kind of making fun of himself, because that's what critics said about Dawson's Creek, and him kind of snapping back to that by saying, this is me complimenting young people, and I understand that young people don't speak like this, but I feel like they have the mindset too. They have all these
Yeah.
feelings and ideas, and these are versions of people that age who can articulate it in
And
a
look,
kind of a much more mature way. So um
maybe Dawson's Creek as a television show, out of context, pulling back, gave genuine real life teens at the time more vocabulary to
Yeah.
use to express themselves, which is a great thing.
Exactly. Yes. So he always said he did that as a bit of a compliment. But so Jen, feels like Dawson, he needs to loosen up a little bit. He's a little too stiff and he needs to learn how to be an actual teenager and go out there and do rebellious things and have fun so that he can get into that
Yeah.
mindset and be able to write a teenager more clearly because he's just in his little bubble. So she tries to do these little things here, do some shoplifting, here, do this, and like let's cut class, and very
Yeah.
much he doesn't follow her. He pretends
He
to.
can't hack it.
He can't do it. But then when he kind of gets into a situation where his parents are kind of all over the place, he
Yeah, they've
ends up.
actually the divorce papers have been filed now.
Yes, so he's kind of emotionally a mess. Um, and then he walks in on his parents kind of making out because Mitch came over to fix something for Gail. He messes it up, water spraying all over the kitchen, him in a wet
Yeah.
shirt, her laughing, and it just sparks this big lustful moment between the two of them where they're doing it on the kitchen table like they used to. Because, season 1, Dawson was constantly
Yes.
walking in on them, doing it all over the house. So Dawson walks in and he sees them and he's like, oh, and then kind of dips out. And so that kind of gives him this spark to lean into, okay, Jen, I'm ready. Teach me how to be spontaneous. And so they end up kind of running around. They do a TPing of a house, and Dawson feels exhilarated. It's nighttime now. They find themselves by the creek, and she ends up kind of taking her clothes off and jumps into the water to go skinny dipping.
There's a lot of people
And
taking the clothes off in these episodes.
yes, Dawson, she kind of dares him and, go with the flow of feeling spontaneous. So he does it. He gets in the water. So they're skinny dipping together. And then they ask each other some really kind of sexy questions. She asks
They
him
do.
if
This
he's
is
ever
something.
had any kind of sexual dreams about her. And he admits that he has. And so, I feel like even though Jen kind of doesn't go along with this kiss that he tries to give her, she's somewhat kind of open generally, because why would you be asking these types of questions and being
Yes, I
very kind of
thought that
flirtatious?
myself.
Yes. So after she asked this, and Dawson kind of agrees that he has, and then he asks her the same, and she says yes, he goes in to kiss her, and then she pulls away and says, I think the old me would have gone for this and done this, and sure, I maybe want to, but I'm really enjoying us being friends, and I don't want to mess that up. And I think the risky thing for me to do is not to do the thing that I would normally do. So I like that
Yeah,
she frames it that way for herself, that it's riskier for
yeah.
her to not fall into the habit of doing the thing that she might want to do, and that she doesn't want to ruin kind of what she's building with Dawson in a real way for once.
No, and given that at the beginning of this season, I was becoming a little bit off put by Jen and what she was doing and
Yes, and her with
character
Abby
wise,
and
and
all of that,
it was just it was very, very unpleasant to watch.
yeah.
I'm coming back around now,
Yeah.
and as the show wants me to do, I'm not,
Yes,
I,
yes.
I'm not completely alien to realizing
No, but
what the show's doing,
the arcs and the
but
shifts in
it's
these
working.
characters feel organic, and, you feel like they might go into the same old places, but no, they're actually kind of playing into some more interesting things and some smart things, and we see our characters actually maturing before our eyes and learning lessons from things past, and the relationships changing in different ways. So I really like this dynamic between Jen and Dawson far more than them in season 1. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the major things that happen in this episode, that we can kind of move on to
Yes,
high risk behavior.
we can now. Obviously, we've had a bit of more of a general overall discussion as well, but we will
Yes.
get into the specifics of season 2, episode 10, high risk behavior. Get the binder
Yes.
back out. I have to say,
Yes. Yes. Um, high risk behavior, episode 210. Titanic romance hits Cape Side.
oh God,
As Dawson hashes out his entire relationship with Joey in his new script, his real life heats up as a collaboration with Jen on his new movie is thick with sexual tension that may inspire Dawson
Mm.
to act on impulse for once in his life. Meanwhile, Joey has graduated from fruit bowls to male nudes in art class, but may have bitten off more than she can chew when Jack accidentally ruins her classwork and offers to pose for her. And Pacey exposes his romantic side as he and Andy continue their delicate dance towards intimacy.
Yes, as we said before, it's full of intimate moments. These couple of
Yes.
episodes. I have another question.
Okay.
Is it allowed for this art class Joey's taking?
Mhm.
Have I misunderstood this art class? Is this not a school art class?
No, well, she met the woman that she had met those few episodes ago.
Yes.
She taught art classes.
So this
So
is an
Joey
adult's art class.
so I don't know that it's an adult specifically an adult art class, but it's an art class that is outside of the high school space. And
Right.
because this
Okay. Well,
woman
that
has
makes a
kind of
little
become
bit more sense
yes,
then.
and because this woman that we had met a few episodes ago when they were doing
Yeah.
the economics project kind of took Joey under her wing. Joey has since independently found places to take classes on her own. So I think she had taken that ladies art class and now she's just subsequently taking her own art classes. And I think maybe she's under the wing of this lady because she's worried about failing and all this kind of thing.
Right.
So I think
Yes.
she's
Okay.
she's independently taking art classes that are not a part of high school curriculum anything. So
I simply ask that because I would really, 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 really question why a school art class or a school-based art class would have nude
nude,
men
yes,
walking.
no, that is not the case. This is a separate situation. Um,
Still, should
and
we be really giving 15, 16-year-olds
I mean, access to
nudes
watching
to
nude men.
draw
Um,
anyway?
Joey has no parents, so I mean, I don't. If she felt okay with Dewey, looking at that, because obviously it's coming from a very non-sexual thing in the
But
class.
is
She's
it? Because it's still art, isn't it? And what do people say? Every bit of art is all to do with that, really, isn't it?
I mean,
So
as an artist, I've never heard that saying before. So,
I have. Look at all the sculptures, right? Look, sculptures throughout ancient history.
okay, well, I don't when we hear Joey talk about it and, Dawson's kind of teasing her about it, "Oh, little Joey Potter, da 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 da," and she seems
Yeah,
very
I'm doing
mature.
the same,
She
Dawson,
seems
actually.
she seems very mature about it when she's talking about it. She's like, "It's not
Oh,
that
she
big of a
does. No, I
deal.
don't
The guy shows up, he
doubt
does,
that.
he poses, he just stands there and stares out the window. It's not a big deal." So when she's drawing this guy, she's not thinking any kind of weird thing. So I
No,
think
I understand that, but my point is not the best art one where you have art in any sense, one where you have an emotional connection to what you are
well,
producing.
that's what happens later when she ends up
Exactly.
yes. So at this point with this random guy that she's been drawing, I don't think there's any of
It's
that.
too technical. It's
Yes.
too just, there is a shape, I must draw it.
Exactly. But when it's somebody that she knows and someone she kind of likes and someone who kind of likes her, that adds to the whole
Yes.
situation. So yeah,
And the art
so she
therefore gets better.
exactly. So she has this art project due. They've been throughout the week drawing this naked guy, and she's pretty much done with it. And she's showing Jack, and he's complimenting the shading and this and that. And then, of course, we've already set up Jack. See things, come back. Jack already has been
Yes.
set up to be a klutz throughout his time knowing Joey, and he spills his drink all over her drawing. She's really worried about failing this class because obviously this is outside school thing. Art is her new thing. She wants to be good at it. So she's really stressed. So Jack offers to pose for her in order for her to get the project done because otherwise she has no project to turn in. So,
Yes, I would phrase it as Jack accidentally spills a drink all over Joey's portrait. So to make up for it, gets his penis out.
I mean,
That's what he does. That's what he does.
which I loved when after you watched the episodes and I asked you, okay, which couple do you think maybe potentially went all the way? And your answer was, well, the couple where somebody got their penis out. And I'm like, okay, fair deduction.
I think that's a fair look. I don't know what happens in the episode coming next. Do I? Sex She Wrote with Angela Lansbury. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who is the actual.
I appreciated the very astute and it was a very fair assessment.
I
so
think
yes,
it was.
yes. So just to kind of keep it on their story, Joey's kind of hesitant to actually go forward with it, but she ultimately does it. And there's like all this nervous energy knocking over the easel and all of this. Jack has his towel on. He's like, do you want me to leave the towel on for now? And then, she's like, yeah, maybe you should just leave it on and so I can get the outline. And so it's very kind of nervous energy. He's trying to talk to her and she's like, maybe you should just not talk. So it's all kind of very awkward situation.
It is, yes.
And then she's like, you know what, never mind, just go. Like, I can't do this. I'll figure something else out. It's fine. And as they're fumbling and bumbling and she's kind of telling him to go, the easel falls over. Jack goes to try to catch it. Towel falls. Joey sees everything. And at this point, he's like, so I guess now that you've seen me, I guess I should stay. And he ends up staying and she ends up drawing him. And as the night goes on, they're having these kinds of conversations. And, I think she asks him if he's a virgin and he says no. And so she kind of asks him what it feels like and asks him about the experience. And Jack kind of describes it in this very emotional, visceral way. Like he gets very in depth about kind of what he's feeling on a physical level, just not in like a really gross way, but a really kind of biological way almost.
Yeah, look, there are scenes like this that we get kind of 3 of, don't we, with each of our couples,
because we kind of cut through each couple in their moments.
Yes. The explanation of what sex means to them, again, as like 16-year-olds.
Yes.
You've got to be pretty careful, Kevin Williamson, when writing this sort of stuff, haven't you? I think he does it really very well.
Yes.
Sometimes it feels, I think this particular explanation from Jack feels just a little bit overboard, but you can understand why somebody at the age he is would think about it and feel about it like this.
And I don't know if they ever establish it, but I always just assume that Jack is like a year older than them. Like he's maybe 16.
It kind of does seem like that, yes.
Yeah.
But
because
still
he's like
young to be
to have this such a profound kind of explanation on how sex feels for him, as so and so Joey kind of finds this very intriguing, and it's a really open conversation. Like she's never really had a conversation like this with Dawson. So the fact that she feels comfortable talking to him about it, and he's describing it like, all poetically and kind of really biologically, like how it was making his body feel and things like that. She's really intrigued and interested.
Yeah.
And so the painting's kind of pretty much done and he goes to look at it, and then they kind of have this awkward moment once he gets dressed, and one thing leads to another and they start making out. Yes, but they do end up start to make out, and they're kissing and they're getting really into it. And so this is the point where kind of we get to see each kind of couple's trajectory to a situation where they're like full on making out. And so then by the end we're supposed to kind of guess, like, did any one of these couples actually go all the way? So
and before we get straight into the other ones, I would also just like to ask, if we think it would have been a little bit funny. I don't know why I keep trying to inject elements of silly comedy into Dawson's Creek, because it's not that. I think it's just because it's high school. I'm expecting some sort of crassness there, and
Yeah.
it just isn't. I need to refocus my mind. It's
Yeah.
because Dawson's Creek is the only show of its kind I've ever watched. That's
Okay.
why. I'm
It's
used to
new.
watching
Yeah.
high school television
Like
that
Skins and
has
things.
not Skins. I mean, that's another extreme level of sex, isn't it? Skins. But that has a certain kind of raw quality to it, right?
Yeah.
And that has a vulgarity to it, I
Yeah.
suppose. And Dawson's Creek just is so far away from vulgar as a show.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
And raw.
they could only go as far as they could go, but I think they
Course
go
they
pretty
could.
they go pretty far for the limits that they have, I think, especially in this episode. In
Of course
terms
they
of
could.
the conversations that happen. And
But they never even make a lot of jokes, do they? Because it's not a comedy show
no,
at all.
it's
It's not a comedy drama. It's
No.
just a drama.
Yeah.
It's a romance drama.
Yes.
So for some reason, somewhere in my mind, this is how warped I have become with things I have watched in the past. I'm picturing the two of them looking at the drawing that Joey's done of him, and there's some sort of comment being made about size.
Okay.
You know, like, oh, you've done me a disservice there, Joey. Or,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't realize I was now a tripod, Joey. You know, some sort of nonsense comment like that.
Well, I'm glad that didn't happen, because I think
I'm glad it didn't happen, but for some reason,
but you were
that's
like
where
waiting for it to
I
happen.
was just I was waiting for it to
Okay,
happen.
well, I'm glad that did not happen. But yes, this kind of painting and, talking about sex and all of that really got them in this mindset to do it. So generally, I mean, how do you feel about Jack and Joey? I know it's kind of a weird thing, considering, her stance on, I need to find myself, I want to find these things,
It
but
is,
finding a
yeah.
general connection. But I think I kind of maybe swayed you a little bit to the fact that Jack is kind of amongst the new things that are separate from Dawson. So he's just one of the many new things that are intriguing her that she has
You
never really
did.
delved into. So seeing them now be intimate in a way, like, how do you feel about that? Do you think they're okay together? Do you like the idea of them together? Or
You did make my mind rethink that situation, because I thought it was another example of back and forth for no reason.
yes. Yeah.
And Joey, I have to find myself, immediately falls into Jack's arms.
Yeah.
However, it does make sense, given that I also think at this point they are the ones who have actually perhaps
Gone all the way.
cemented themselves.
Okay.
Why do I say these phrases? I am clearly not off put by the idea anymore.
Yes.
So I don't. It's not my favorite relationship, because it's still Pacey and Andy
Okay.
in this trio of relationships, right?
Hmm.
Definitely. But I understand it, and I get it now, and it does feel it doesn't feel like doing Joey a disservice as a character and what she wants to do, because it is still something different, something on her own, something new,
Yeah.
something fresh,
A
something
new
she has never known
exploration.
before.
Yes. And being able to be so open with someone in a serious sense about these things. I think her and Dawson always talked about sex in kind of a jokey way. So the fact that she can
Yeah.
have this really real conversation with someone about sex and kind of play into these feelings that she's having maybe for, the first, second time, and is really intriguing to her. So yeah, I think an interesting dynamic with the two of them. Then to move on to your favorite, Pacey and Andy, they're trying to really decide whether they want to go all the way or not. They're really getting serious. She has expressed she wants to. He has expressed he wants to, but he is in no way pressuring her. They can go at her pace.
Yeah.
So he sets up this really romantic evening for her. They go walking on the dock, and then he or takes her to a nice bed and breakfast. And even before that, I think she runs into him at the drugstore where she's getting Xanax, and he grabs the
Mm.
bag and sees what it is. And she says, "Oh, no, it's not for me. It's for my mom." So her, just
She's a
in
lie.
the back, looming in the background, her still struggling with mental health issues and her not telling him
Yeah.
about it. So that is something that's just looming in the back. So this romantic evening, bed and breakfast, big bed, they ultimately say, okay, let's maybe go for it. And so they're kissing. And so we're kind of intercutting her kissing and Jack and Joey kissing
Yeah.
and Dawson and Jen, which we'll get into kissing as well. And then ultimately Pacey says, you know what? I don't think we should do this tonight. I don't want to rush you. And, I want to do this in your time. And as much as I want to, I think we should wait. And so
And
ultimately,
this is why I think they weren't the ones, because I think Pacey has genuinely believes that, because I trust Pacey. He is not let's go and sleep with Miss Jacobs.
exactly. So he is very much like, I am wanting to think differently about this. He almost has the same mentality we saw Jen have in the last episode. I
Yeah.
think I want to think differently for once. The old me would just jump right into it. You're saying green light, go, let's do it. But I think I want to make sure that, I am celebrating us as a relationship before we kind of even delve into anything deeper than that. I want to,
Yeah.
fully be secure in us without that, and feel good about that. And prove to you that it's about this relationship and what we give each other outside of that other stuff. So then we ultimately kind of see them leaving the hotel and walking away, and then the to be continued comes up on the screen. So
Yes.
okay. Then with Jen and Dawson, I don't think we discussed kind of just the tail end of the last episode. He thought his parents were getting back together because they had that kind of lustful
That's right.
tryst.
Yeah.
But
But
ultimately,
definitely not.
Mitch kind of says, no, it was just a one-time thing. It was just a slip, a mistake. And the divorce is still happening. So he's
Yeah.
devastated, heartbroken, goes to Jen, who consoles him. So
Yeah.
friendship has really kind of grown huge between him and Jen. So now going into this next episode, she's full on his producer. She's helping him um, get people for auditions to read some of the script. And she's kind of still telling him, and the big crux in the script is he's making the characters not actually have sex. And he thinks that's the riskier choice because any other movie, that you would see about teenagers would make them have sex. So he feels like he's doing the smart thing by not. And Jenna's like, I think you need to have them just do it. Kids, people our age can have sex and not have to have all these implications. They can give into lust, and they can also give into lust and have that be love, because he feels like if they just give into lust, it's only going to be a lustful thing. He's not
Is
seeing
this
that
not?
love and lust can be an equated thing. And so Jen's trying to convince him that he should push his script that way. So all this talk of that kind of has him thinking about that in the context of Jen.
Is this not exactly what I've just brought up with in comparing Dawson's Creek as a teen show to the other teen shows I've watched?
Yes, yes.
It's exactly the same. It's treated so seriously, and
Yeah.
maybe this is again somewhat meta commentary from Kevin Williamson, that he treats his own show so seriously,
Yeah.
yet is very self-aware that he treats his own show very
Exactly.
seriously.
And makes Dawson the surrogate him who
Yeah.
is taking it so seriously, and Jen telling him, you know, you, people our age are going to be able to play into these urges. It's not a risky choice to make them not. Like,
It's not,
be more, instead of trying to do the safe choice that you think, oh well, everyone else is going to make them have sex, but I'm special because I'm not going to do that. I think it makes more sense and it's more relatable to have them play into these urges that they're feeling. So they're holding auditions. Jen is still trying to get him to change things in the script in terms of the couple that he's writing, just going for it.
And
So we
the
get
lines are, and
yeah,
the script itself is
are very big
incredibly,
words and very just,
yes,
so highbrow, kind of saying the simplest
incredibly
things,
highbrow.
but very highbrow. And so we see this kind of montage of people like Abby and Chris reading this script and auditioning for the role. And I think they do end up picking Chris to to be the leading guy
Weirdly.
in the yes. Um so ultimately, all this kind of talk. So Dawson, he sat at his computer, he's looking at the script, and he's kind of realizing maybe Jen's right. And so he ends up kind of deleting everything he had. And he goes and he sneaks through Jen's window and he says, you don't need to ask my motivation. And then he just kisses her. So very much
Mm.
playing into kind of what she's been telling the whole episode. People can just play into what they're feeling without any kind of
Spontaneity.
yes, without any kind of huge overthinking over conversation. All these big words are not needed. Just play into these real organic lustful feelings that you may be having. And so Dawson in this moment kind of just does that and doesn't
He
overanalyze
does,
it. And so we
which
see
is
them in Jen's bed totally going at it, making out
uh,
all crazy. And so we're cutting between them two and Andy and Pacey and
yeah.
Jack and Joey all making out. And yeah.
Which Dawson's on a good train of me not being,
Yes, this is the most I
annoyed by
think
him
we've
a lot,
we've liked
actually.
Dawson being more spontaneous, not overthinking things, actually listening, feeling bad for him because of what's happening around him.
Yeah. I mean,
So
what genuinely great character development for
yes.
Dawson this is.
Yes. I think all
To
our
be able
characters are
to do
developing really
things.
well. From season 1 to now,
Absolutely.
our foursome has definitely grown a lot. We've seen like Pacey maturing with his relationship with Andy, Joey really learning that she needs to find more for herself than just Dawson, Jen really being honest with herself
Learning to
about who
chill
she
out.
is, but also kind of trying to foster real friendships and really finding people who genuinely care about her.
Yeah.
And Dawson really getting out of his head of this highbrow idealizing of everything,
Yeah.
and really just living and acting his age when the moment warrants it. So
Which is very, very important. And I like that we finally
yeah,
see it really come to fruition in this particular
yes,
episode. Because we haven't seen it go this far, even close to this far yet.
yes,
And we do now. And I would like to believe the train continues. I don't obviously know anything. I'm just
yes.
speaking.
So
Um,
a little preview of next episode. Yes, a sex she wrote. Someone writes a note about stating that we've hooked up. One person in one of these scenarios has confirmed that a hookup has happened, but that
yeah,
they don't really feel like it should have happened.
yeah,
And there's a school project happening where they have to like solve a mystery or something. And Abby ends up finding this letter and decides to make that her project to decide which between those three couples actually went all the way.
yes. You have spoken about this episode to me over the last
Yes.
week or so in with great fondness,
Yeah.
and I'm looking forward to it because I think it's going to be absolutely chaotic. To
Yeah.
be
A
honest with you,
little bit.
emotionally.
Yes.
So what's Dawson's Creek if not absolutely chaotic emotionally? So it
Yes.
makes sense, right?
Yes.
But no, I like where we're at, I think.
Okay.
Um, and while Dawson and Jen, I don't think should be
Maybe
a
anything
romantic
more of this,
situation.
but you're really enjoying the friendship and want them to kind
I,
of
I I enjoy the friendship and I enjoy Dawson being spontaneous. I enjoy Dawson not being in his own head, especially at a tough time for him, because that's just healthy as a person to
yeah.
not be in your own head. I know about being in my own head. So when I see somebody getting out of their own head, it's
Yeah.
quite cathartic. It's quite pleasant
Yes.
to see.
Yeah.
Um, so I like that for Dawson. I do think if if there was going to be somebody, if it was either Dawson or Jen who would have written the sex she wrote letter, it would be Dawson.
Okay.
Because I think he would maybe have a lapse of panic again and, you know, going over every different possible scenario again.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it would be Andy from Pacey and Andy who would write that letter. And I think it would be Joey from Joey
From
and Jack who write that letter.
Okay. I like it. I like the speculation.
But I still think it's Joey and Jack. So I do think it's ultimately Joey who writes that of the 6 people. That was my guess.
Yes. So definitely excited to revisit this episode. It's been a while since I've seen it. But yes, these are some solid episodes, some really great growth from our characters. Things getting a little more sexy, which is okay.
Yeah.
Like our kids, our kids delving into these kinds of emotions instead of talking about them incessantly, just really interesting. So yeah.
It is. I can't wait for next time, to be honest. Discovering Dawson's Creek is always a blast here on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel. Do subscribe up there and ding your notification bell as well for all the fun stuff we have here. Of course, it's pretty close to Christmas Day now as well. So keep an eye out. Because on Christmas Day, Is Morgan Hasn't Seen 300. It is a massive special episode airing on Christmas Day. Full video on this YouTube channel as well. Of course, on the podcast feed. The It's a Wonderful podcast feed. Wherever you get your podcasts. As always, Monday Madness, Morgan Hasn't Seen. It's a Wonderful Podcast, the main show over there. Obviously. But all the other stuff has been scrolling down at the bottom of the screen. There is Patreon and donation links in the description, social media as well, of course. I do think, Janine, there is therefore only one thing left to do. And in your best impression of, no, that doesn't work, somebody painting, drawing a nude man.
What? How do I say it like that?
You've got to express yourself. That's the point, isn't it? We're supposed to be expressing ourselves now in Dawson's Creek.
Pulling our penises out.
No, I'm not going. No, we can't do that. It's YouTube. You can't do that. Different platforms, possibly.
3, 2, 1.
Is that how you think a penis would speak? Bye.
Bye.